I needed to breathe. That was all. After weeks of nonstop deadlines, a breakup scare that thankfully passed, and the usual noise of city life gnawing at my brain, I decided to escape. Not far, just far enough that the world would stop spinning for a moment. So I drove out to Haven Beach, a little stretch of coastline an hour outside the city, quiet enough to hear the waves, but still close enough that I wouldn't feel totally off the grid. I brought a towel, a paperback I knew I wouldn't finish, and a lunch I forgot in the car. Typical me. The sun was perfect that day, warm, not blistering. Kids played down by the pier. Someone had a Bluetooth speaker quietly humming indie pop behind me. It was peaceful. I lay back and let the sound of the tide lull me into something close to calm. For the first time in days, I wasn't checking my phone. I wasn't thinking about work or texts I hadn't returned. I wasn't even thinking about him, my boyfriend, though I knew he'd asked if I wanted company. But today felt like it had to be mine. I must have stayed like that for over an hour, just in and out of light naps, flipping the book open occasionally, pretending to read. Around 3 p.m., I started to pack up, brushing the sand from my towel and stretching my legs. That's when I noticed it. My wallet was gone. First, I laughed. One of those half-delusional Sundays chuckles like, "It's in the bag. Don't be dramatic." Except it wasn't. I emptied my tote 3 times, checked under the towel, walked back and forth along the sand, retracing the short path I'd taken earlier to the boardwalk bathroom. Nothing. I even asked the woman behind me, who shrugged kindly and said she hadn't seen anything. And then the panic set in. It wasn't the cash I cared about, or even the driver's license, which would be a hassle to replace. It was the tiny silver USB drive I'd shoved into the side pocket 2 days ago. Forgotten until now. It had photos, private ones, not scandalous exactly, but personal. Ones I'd taken for my boyfriend back when he traveled for work. Nothing meant for anyone else's eyes. My heart dropped to my stomach. My fingers shook. I looked around helplessly, unsure if I was about to cry or throw up. I didn't know what to do. That's when I heard his voice. "Hey," he said, calm and steady. "You dropped this." I turned around, and there he was, holding my wallet like it was nothing more than a lost receipt. He was striking. Mid-30s, maybe older. Sun-bleached hair tousled just enough to look natural. A light gray shirt clung to his chest, sleeves rolled up like he belonged in a catalog. But what caught me most were his eyes, dark, amused, assessing. "Oh my God. Thank you," I said, probably too fast. I reached for the wallet, trying to keep my voice steady. "Where'd you find it?" "Near the lifeguard tower," he replied. "Almost missed it." It blended in with the sand. I opened it on instinct. My ID was there. The cash. A few receipts. My fingers dug into the small side slot, heart pounding. The USB was not there. Maybe it fell out separately. Or maybe it never was in there. Maybe I left it on my desk. I forced a smile. "Seriously, thank you." I was freaking out. He tilted his head, smiling just slightly. "You didn't look like someone who freaks out." "You caught me in between freakouts," I said with a nervous laugh. He chuckled. "I'm Aaron, by the way." I gave him my name. I shouldn't have, but I did. "You here alone?" he asked. "Yeah. Just needed a break from city noise." "I get that. Sometimes people think they need space from their job. Turns out they need space from everything else." His words struck something soft in me. The way people do when they say things you hadn't realized were true until they voiced them. He looked down at my bag. "Heading out?" "Yeah. I was just about to. Mind if I walk you to your car?" Not trying to be creepy. Just figured I'd keep the good karma going. I hesitated. Just long enough to feel like I was weighing something more than a walk. But I nodded. We started down the sandy path toward the parking lot. He asked where I was from, what I did for work. Light questions, but he listened with full attention, which always feels like more than it is. He complimented my voice, said I had a calm cadence, like someone who read to others. That made me blush, even though I wasn't sure if it was flirtation or just politeness. When we reached my car, I fumbled with my keys. "I'm glad I found your wallet," he said. Some people would have taken the cash and tossed it. I'm lucky then. He smiled. You are. There was a pause. He leaned slightly closer, not enough to cross a line, but enough to feel like a test. You sure you're not the one who's lucky? I joked, deflecting. He laughed, deep and low. We'll see. As I got in the car, I thanked him again. He waved casually, but his eyes lingered on mine a second too long. I pulled out of the lot, heart racing for reasons I couldn't fully explain. When I got back to the main road, I checked my phone. A new message lit up the screen. Unknown number. Drive safe. Your name. Maybe I'll see you again. I stared at it, wondering if I had said too much, if I had smiled too long, if I had just misjudged charm for kindness. But most of all, I wondered where that USB had really gone. He found more than just my wallet. He found my name, my number, my vulnerability. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the late afternoon haze had turned golden. The porch light hadn't flicked on yet, but the windows glowed from inside, that warm, familiar light that always made me feel like I belonged somewhere. He was in the kitchen. Of course he was. I saw him through the window before I even stepped inside. Sleeves rolled up, brow furrowed as he stirred something in a pan. His quiet concentration always made me smile. He cooked like it was therapy, and maybe for him it was. I opened the door, and the smell of garlic and rosemary greeted me before he did. Hey! I called out softly. He turned with a grin, wiping his hands on a towel. Hey you! You're back earlier than I thought. Beach got boring, I said, kicking my shoes off and dropping my toad on the counter. Or you just didn't bring sunscreen again and fried yourself into retreat, he teased, walking over to give me a kiss. I leaned into it, grateful for the easy affection. He wrapped his arms around my waist and held me for a second longer than usual. Not urgent, just grounding. That was the thing about him. He was never flashy, never dramatic, just steady. The kind of person you could fall apart around without feeling like a burden. How was it? He asked as he went back to the stove. I grabbed a glass of water and leaned on the counter. Nice, quiet. I napped more than I read. You actually relaxed? Who are you? And what have you done with my boyfriend? I chuckled. There was a weird moment though. He glanced over. Yeah. I lost my wallet for like half an hour. Full panic. I thought I dropped it in the ocean or something. He froze for just a second, then resumed stirring. But you found it? Sort of. This guy found it and gave it back. Said he saw it near the lifeguard tower. He nodded slowly. That's lucky. Yeah. I mean, he was nice. A little intense maybe, but nothing happened. My boyfriend didn't say anything right away, just turned off the stove and reached for plates. I didn't think anything did, he said finally, his voice even. Just be careful. I knew what he meant. He wasn't jealous. He wasn't possessive. But he knew the world and he knew me. I could be too trusting sometimes. Too polite when I should have been cautious. I nodded. I will. After dinner, which turned out to be a lemon butter pasta with roasted chicken and steamed greens because of course he'd overachieve on a Thursday, I retreated to the couch with my wallet, flipping through it again. ID? Check. Debit card? Check. A couple of receipts and a crumpled note from a coffee shop? All there. I reached into the narrow inside pocket where I thought I'd stuffed the USB. Empty. I frowned, digging around the seams. Nothing. I couldn't remember if I'd taken it out or not. I hadn't used it in days. Could have easily fallen out at home. Or maybe it wasn't in there to begin with. I tried not to overthink it. Still, the feeling in my stomach didn't quite settle. He walked over and sat beside me, pulling my legs across his lap and rubbing my ankle absent-mindedly, as we watched a rerun of some cooking show we both liked but never finished. I glanced at him, at the quiet strength in his shoulders, the softness in his eyes when they glanced sideways at me. This was my person, the one who always chose me, even when I didn't know how to choose myself. You okay? He asked, catching me staring. Yeah, I said. Just tired. Want me to run you a bath? I smiled. That's dangerously domestic of you. Dangerous is my middle name. We both laughed. It was easy, unforced, like slipping into a rhythm we built over months of holding space for each other. Later, I lay in bed with him, my head on his chest, listening to his heartbeat and letting my fingers trace lazy circles over his arm. "You're really okay?" he murmured. "Yeah," I whispered. "It was just a wallet. Just a guy." He pressed a kiss to the top of my head. "You're more than your wallet, or your past, or your mistakes." I didn't say anything. I didn't need to. His breath was steady beneath me, his warmth constant, and as my eyes drifted shut, I felt something settle deep inside me. Something I hadn't realized had been shifting all day. I didn't need anyone to find me. I was already found. It started with a text. "Unknown number, hey, hope you made it home okay." I stared at the message for a moment, thumb hovering over the screen. I hadn't saved his number, hadn't planned to, but I recognized the tone immediately. Polite, warm, a little too familiar for someone I'd spoken to for 10 minutes on a beach. I didn't respond. A few hours later, "Didn't mean to scare you. Just thought you were easy to talk to." Then, "Maybe I read the moment wrong. Sorry if I did." I still didn't reply, but something about the shift, from confident to apologetic, made my chest tighten. Not guilt exactly, just discomfort. That night, I told my boyfriend about the texts. He was stirring tea in his mug when I mentioned it. He didn't react much, just gave a small nod and said, "Block the number. Nothing else to do." And I did. But it didn't stop there. 2 days later, I stepped out of my office's front doors, adjusting my satchel, mind already drifting toward what to make for dinner. I didn't notice the black car parked along the curb until someone stepped out of it. Aaron. He looked exactly the same, like the kind of man who never had a hair out of place. Tailored navy shirt, slacks, sunglasses, and a paper bag in his hand. "Lunch?" he said with a smile, holding it up like this was a perfectly normal gesture. My stomach dropped. "What are you doing here?" "You didn't answer. Thought I'd try the old-fashioned way." I glanced around. People were walking by, co-workers chatting near the steps. I didn't want a scene. "You need to leave," I said, trying to keep my voice low and firm. "I brought your favorite," he said, ignoring me, holding the bag out. "Pesto chicken with a side of couscous. I saw it on your Instagram weeks ago. Thought it looked good." That made me flinch. I had posted that story 2 months ago, a photo of lunch with my boyfriend. I hadn't thought much of it since. "I'm with someone," I said, taking a step back. "I know." His expression didn't change. "But you shouldn't be." I blinked. "Excuse me?" He stepped closer, voice softening in a way that made it somehow worse. "You should be with someone who sees you, really sees you, someone who pays attention to the details, who shows up. I don't even know you." "You know enough," he said. "And I know what I saw in your eyes that day. Don't lie to yourself just to feel safe." I opened my mouth to respond, but he kept going. "If you're scared to leave him, I get it. Some guys make you feel guilty for wanting more. But I can fix that." The way he said it, fix that, like my relationship was a problem to be solved. It chilled me. "I'm not scared of him," I said sharply. "And I'm not leaving him. This, whatever you think this is, needs to stop." That's when he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black box. I froze. He opened it right there on the sidewalk. Inside a ring. Silver band. Small diamond. Elegant and cold. "This isn't a joke," he said. "I don't play games. When I know something's real, I don't wait around for it to disappear." People were watching now. A woman walking her dog slowed down. 2 interns from my office stopped mid-laugh, eyes wide. "I don't know what you think this is," I said through clenched teeth. "But I'm not yours. I never was. Take your ring. Take your lunch. Take the hint." I turned and walked away, hands shaking, blood pounding in my ears. I didn't look back. When I reached the crosswalk, I stopped, exhaled, and finally turned around. He was still standing there, not angry, not embarrassed, just smiling. The kind of smile that says, "This isn't over." It started with a subject line. "No sender. No signature." Just Are these still just for your boyfriend? I was standing at the kitchen counter, sipping coffee, scrolling through my inbox absent-mindedly. The message came through like a jolt of electricity. My thumb froze mid-scroll. I stared at the subject line for a solid 30 seconds before I tapped it open. The email was blank, no text, no greeting. Just 4 attached images. I clicked the first one. It was me, naked, kneeling in front of a mirror, the reflection catching just enough to reveal my face, my posture, my vulnerability. The second photo was worse. A private shot I barely remembered taking, something meant as a playful gift for my boyfriend while he was on a work trip last year. Nothing cruel or explicit, but intimate, sacred, ours. I slammed my phone down like it had burned me. My heart thudded in my chest like I'd been caught in a lie I hadn't told. I could barely breathe. Shame swept in first, then panic, then anger. He had them. Aaron had them. The USB. It had been in the wallet. I hadn't just imagined it. I picked up the phone with shaking hands and scrolled to the blocked number. Unblocked. Called. Straight to voicemail. I called again. And again. On the 4th attempt, I got a reply, but not a call. Just a text. Unknown number. Say yes, or I'll make you go viral. I dropped the phone. The sound of ceramic shattering made me realize I'd knocked my coffee mug off the counter. My legs gave out, and I sat down hard on the floor, hands clutching my chest like I could physically hold my insides together. I didn't know what to do, who to call, what to say. My throat felt tight. My mind raced through every consequence. My job, my family, my friends, my boyfriend. The door opened behind me. I didn't even register it until his voice cut through the haze. Babe! I couldn't speak. I just stared up at him, frozen. He dropped his keys and rushed over. Hey, what happened? Are you okay? I tried to talk. Nothing came out. He crouched beside me, his hands finding mine. You're shaking. What happened? I looked him in the eye, and the tears came. Hard. Violent. I handed him my phone. Don't freak out, I whispered. Please just don't freak out. He took the phone and looked at the screen. I watched the muscles in his jaw tighten as he scrolled through the images. Then the message. He set the phone down carefully. Too carefully. Then he pulled me into his arms and held me tighter than he ever had. It's him, I said into his shoulder. The guy from the beach. He had my USB. I didn't know. I didn't think he'd. God. I was so stupid. You're not stupid, he said firmly. He stole from you. He violated your trust. That's on him, not you. I pulled back, wiping my face with my sleeve. I should have been more careful. You shouldn't have to be careful, he snapped. Then he softened. You shouldn't have to live like the world is waiting to hurt you. I looked down at my hands. What do we do? He was quiet for a moment. Then he took a deep breath, cupped my face, and said with a steadiness I'll never forget, we're going to take this man down. There was a moment, the night after I broke down, where I thought we should just disappear. Change my number. Delete every photo I'd ever taken. Move somewhere coastal, quiet, and small where the internet couldn't find me. But my boyfriend didn't think like that. We don't run, he said, eyes sharp and steady. Not from cowards. The next morning, he sat down at his laptop, mug of black coffee beside him, jaw clenched tighter than I'd ever seen it. I watched from the couch, still raw, still wrapped in a blanket like it could keep the shame off my skin. He was already inside the metadata of the email headers. This message was routed through a cloaked IP, he murmured, scanning fast. But it's sloppy. There's a relay point from a hotel guest network. He looked up at me. You said he was dressed like money. This confirms it, high-end resort on the edge of downtown. He probably thinks free Wi-Fi means anonymous. I swallowed. You're saying we can trace him? I'm saying, he said, leaning back. We can trap him. I blinked. Like bait. Exactly. He wants power? Let's make him think he has it. You'll meet him. Agree to dinner. Smile. Let him talk. My stomach dropped. I don't want to be near him. You won't be alone, he said. I'll be 3 tables away. And if he tries anything, I won't let him. I stared at him, at this man who'd always been my calm, my balance. I'd never seen this fire in him before. It didn't burn hot. It burned cold, calculated. We called his old college roommate, now a defense lawyer who owed him a favor or two, sent over the emails, the photos, the context. He agreed immediately to help gather legal documentation and advised us to get the bastard to talk. Anything verbal is evidence. Even if it's vague, anything that confirms he took the USB. 2 days later, I sent the message. Me? Fine. Dinner. One night. Then you leave me alone. He replied instantly. You'll see this is right. I'll send details. The restaurant was one of those rooftop places with dim lighting, overpriced wine, and a string quartet trying to make Billie Eilish sound classical. I wore black, sleek, confident, or at least I hoped it looked confident. My boyfriend helped pin a tiny mic under the lapel of my jacket, connected to his phone. You've got this, he whispered before I walked in. I spotted Aaron near the windows, relaxed, smug, swirling a glass of red wine like he already owned the place. You look stunning, he said as I approached. But then again, you always did. Even when you were sunburned and panicking. I sat down, forced a smile. This isn't a date. Call it what you want, he said. You're here. The waiter arrived. Aaron ordered for both of us without asking. That alone made my skin crawl. But I didn't flinch. He leaned in, eyes scanning me like I was still something to decode. You look different, he said. Softer. Less angry. I'm not angry, I replied. I'm tired. Of him? He asked. Of this? I said. He smiled again. It doesn't have to be complicated. You could have a life you actually want. No more hiding. No more crumbs from a man who doesn't get you. I said nothing. He pulled out his phone and tapped the screen. I still have them, by the way. Not just the 4 I sent. I copied the whole drive. You really should have used encryption. My stomach turned. He went on. I'm not threatening you, by the way. Just being honest. Transparency is the foundation of trust. You think this is trust? I said quietly. I think you know you don't belong in a half-life, he replied. You want a man who makes decisions, who takes what he wants. He was spiraling now. Narcissism wrapped in romance. That was when I knew he wanted to own me. Not love me, not know me, own me. I gave a small nod. You really kept everything? His grin widened. Of course. You never know when someone might need reminding. He reached for his wine. I reached for my phone. The text I sent was one word. Now. 3 tables over, my boyfriend stood up. 2 men in plain clothes entered seconds later. Our lawyer and a private investigator he'd brought along to document and formally witness the setup. They approached Aaron's side of the table. Sir, the lawyer said calmly, you're in possession of private, explicit media obtained without consent. We have audio of you admitting so. I recommend you come with us. Quietly. Aaron blinked. For the first time, his confidence slipped. What is this? He spat, looking at me. This is accountability, I said. He stood. You played me? I protected myself, I said. You should try it sometime. The investigator gently took his phone while the lawyer handed him a legal summons. We've also contacted the hotel, he added. You've used their network for harassment. They're cooperating. Aaron looked around like the walls were closing in. But no one was looking at him anymore. As he was escorted away, he turned back to me and said, You'll regret this. I didn't answer. I didn't need to. That night, I lay on the couch, curled into my boyfriend's chest as he ran his fingers through my hair. The city lights outside blinked like nothing had changed. But I knew better. Everything had changed. You were amazing, I whispered. So were you, he replied. You faced him. You didn't flinch. I wanted to. But you didn't. I breathed deeply, listening to his heartbeat under my ear. For days, Aaron had made me feel small, powerless, trapped. But he forgot something. I wasn't alone. I never was. He thought I was alone, but he never saw us coming. The raid happened a week later. It was a Tuesday morning, gray skies, light drizzle, the kind of weather that makes everything feel like it's holding its breath. I was sitting on the couch, nursing a second cup of coffee, when my phone buzzed. It was a short message from the lawyer. "It's done. They're in." I closed my eyes, heart pounding. After everything, the humiliation, the threats, the sleepless nights, it was finally happening. The police had secured a warrant based on the recording and the corroborating digital evidence. His devices were to be confiscated, including any drives or cloud backups. The charges? Unlawful possession of intimate media, extortion, and harassment. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just breathed, deeper than I had in weeks. The courtroom was colder than I expected. Not just in temperature, but in energy. Clean, sterile, indifferent. Like it had seen too many lives torn apart to care anymore. He sat across the room from me, in a suit slightly wrinkled at the cuffs, like he hadn't had time to change properly. His hair was still perfect. His smirk, though, was gone. The judge read the charges aloud. I listened, but the words felt distant. What brought me back was the moment I was asked to speak. Victim statement. Even the word felt foreign. I stood slowly, hands trembling just enough to make me glad I had notes, even though I barely looked at them. I trusted that my privacy mattered. I began, voice quieter than I wanted, that the world had rules, and that people, at the very least, had boundaries. I paused, scanning the room. No eye contact with him. Not yet. I never said yes to being recorded. I never said yes to being threatened. I never said yes to having my body treated like a weapon. Now I looked at him. "You took something that wasn't yours, not just a USB drive, but my safety, my peace, my ability to breathe without wondering who might see something I never meant for them." His jaw tightened. He didn't look away. "But you forgot something," I said. "You can take someone's image. You can steal their data. You can try to manipulate their fear. But you can't own them. Not really. Not ever." His defense tried to paint it as a misunderstanding, said the photos were shared voluntarily, that he felt a connection, that this was all an escalation of hurt feelings. But facts are louder than fantasies, and facts were on our side. The court ruled in my favor. He was fined, placed on probation, and required to attend counseling and register for a digital harassment prevention program. He avoided jail time, but not shame, because justice didn't just come in legal paperwork. Came in distance. One by one, the people in his world stepped back. A startup he was affiliated with dropped him. A podcast he appeared on removed his episodes quietly. Friends, connections, followers gone or ghosting. I saw it happen online. One vague tweet here, a deleted photo there, a silence that said everything. Weeks later, I was invited to speak at a local LGBTQ+ support group that hosted monthly sessions on digital safety and emotional recovery. I almost declined, but then I remembered how alone I had felt, how I'd sat on my kitchen floor thinking my life was over, with no one to tell me it wasn't. So I said yes. The meeting was in the back room of a coffee shop, worn couches, string lights, paper cups of tea passed hand to hand. There were maybe 12 people there. Some were older. Some barely out of high school. All of them watching me like I held a mirror they weren't sure they wanted to look into. I told them everything. Not just the facts, but the feelings. The guilt. The shame. The anger. The cold fear that someone could take your body and make it not yours anymore. "I don't have a silver lining ending," I said near the close. "But I have this. I still get to decide who I am. And no one gets to take that away again." Afterward, a young man with a shaky voice thanked me. He said, "I thought I was the only one." And in that moment I knew, if nothing else, something good had already come from it. Back home, I sat on the edge of the bed and opened my inbox one last time. There it was. One unread message from him. No subject. No preview. My boyfriend stood in the doorway, arms crossed gently. "You going to open it?" he asked. I shook my head. He sat beside me. I stared at the screen for a long moment. Then I clicked the small checkbox, hovered over the trash icon, and deleted it. Unread. Unanswered. Unimportant. A small thing, maybe, but it felt enormous. Later that night, we curled up in bed together, the fan humming above us, the air cool and clean. I rested my head against his chest and traced the lines of his arm with my fingertips. "You okay?" he asked softly. I nodded. Getting there. There were scars, still tender places, but there was also healing, and choice, and love. He tried to own my body, but I owned my story. The beach didn't feel the same, but I wasn't the same either. It had been several weeks since the courtroom, since the group meeting, since the unread email I chose to delete. Time had softened the sharp edges of everything. The fear, the shame, the anger, smoothing them down like sea glass. But I hadn't gone back to the beach. Not until now. He asked me gently one morning while we were making pancakes. "Do you want to go back there?" he said, flipping a perfectly golden round onto my plate. "The place where it all started." I hesitated. I'm not sure how I'd feel. He poured syrup onto my stack and smiled without pushing. "Then let's go find out." We drove with the windows down, letting the wind do most of the talking. I watched the highway stretch out before us like a path back to something I had left behind. Not something I wanted to reclaim, but maybe something I needed to face. When we pulled into the same old lot, I half expected to feel sick. But instead, I just felt quiet. We walked down the wooden ramp hand in hand, my sandals kicking soft plumes of sand with each step. The sun was high, the sky open and endless. The ocean glittered like a memory just out of reach. "Looks different," I murmured. "It's not," he said. "You are." He squeezed my hand. We laid out a blanket near the same spot where I'd napped that day. The day I lost my wallet, the day I met the man who would try to break me, and the day, in a way, that set everything else in motion. We didn't talk about it much. We didn't need to. Instead, we swam. We laughed. We splashed each other like kids. At one point he tried to dunk me and I squealed so loudly that a couple nearby started laughing too. The water was cold, but it felt like a reset. When we returned to our spot and collapsed into the warmth of the sun, he rolled onto his side and looked at me for a long time. "What?" I asked, still catching my breath. He reached into his bag and pulled out something small. A ring box. Not flashy. Not staged. Not surrounded by cameras or grand gestures. Just him. Just us. "I thought about waiting," he said, "for some big anniversary, or a perfectly timed dinner, or some overly complicated plan. But honestly, I don't need a perfect moment. I just need a true one." I stared at him, heart thudding like the tide had shifted inside my chest. He opened the box. Inside was a simple silver band. "No diamond. No engraving." Just smooth, bright promise. "I don't want to fix you. I don't want to save you. I just want to stand beside you. Whatever version of you shows up, I'm in. If you are." I didn't speak for a moment. I didn't need to. I nodded, eyes full, heart full. And then I whispered, "Yes." We kissed, slow and warm and real, the kind that anchors you in the moment so deeply that the rest of the world falls away. Later, as the sun began to dip toward the horizon, I reached into my own bag. I pulled out the old USB. I'd found it in a box at the back of my closet a few days ago. I hadn't plugged it in. I didn't need to. Whatever was on it didn't define me anymore. He watched silently as I walked to the edge of the shore. I held it in my palm for a long time, waves lapping at my toes, salt in the air. Then I wound up and tossed it, far, high, spinning silver, into the ocean. The splash was small, but it echoed. He walked up behind me and wrapped his arms around my waist. "Goodbye?" he asked. "Closure," I said. We stood there like that, two silhouettes against the fading sun, listening to the tide erase everything behind us. I closed my eyes and let it all go. The fear, the anger, the false intimacy, the theft of my peace. And I let love take its place. Real love. Not the kind that arrives uninvited and demands your soul. The kind that knocks, waits, and holds your hand when you open the door. He found my wallet. But the man who found my heart never had to steal it. If you've ever had someone try to take your power, and you took it back, tell us your story in the comments. Like this video if you believe real love doesn't demand, it respects. Subscribe for more stories about healing, truth, and the quiet strength it takes to start again.